This is more Atlantic Chase by GMT Games. This is the second of the solitaire scenarios called Contain and Destroy, set in September 1939. And in this scenario we play the British, and we have two convoys, one heading from Africa up towards Portsmouth and the other across the Atlantic from Halifax into Liverpool. We have two other task forces. You can see there two stations, one off the coast, one in the English Channel, that is the light cruiser Neptune, and Scapa Flow we have a battle cruiser Repulse and four heavy cruisers. In this case I have the Fiji, the Kent, the Exeter and the Southampton. We also have some reinforcements in Scapa Flow, the battleships Rodney and what's the other one, the Valiant, and we have some French in reinforcements that could potentially come on, be brought on in Brest, and that is the Admiral Jean Soule, and we have the Strasbourg battle cruiser and a couple of light cruisers, the Montcalm and the something Legs, yeah, anyway, the G Legs, whatever the G stands for. Anyway, there we have it. So we are the British. We are trying to do a few things. We are trying to get these convoys into port back to port successfully. We are trying to stop German convoys that are going to appear in Narvik getting back to port, which for them will be Kiel or Wilhelmshaven. So we're trying to stop them coming around the Norwegian coast, and we are trying to stop any aggressive action by German warships against us. So yes, and sink them if at all possible. So yes, sinking German ships is good. Having ours sunk, bad, but not as bad as sinking German ships is worth 5 VPs, and losing British ships, I'm not sure it's even, losing British convoys definitely costs 5 VPs. British casualties only cost 3 VPs, so we don't mind them being sunk as long as we sink more than we lose. But losing convoys is definitely not an option. The other little quirk in this scenario is that the hexes of the Norwegian coast running round from roughly Bergen round to Murmansk here are considered neutral, and they're neutral waters, and so if you go making aggressive actions like engage actions or airstrike actions in them, you have to roll on a table to see how angry the Norwegians get, and that can cost you 2 VPs, or it can add a German airbase in Trondheim, which would be annoying, or it can have no impact at all. And this scenario also features the Germans having basically unidentified task forces that, again, you only roll for the contents when we need to know. So that's the situation. The British start with the initiative, so we can plot some trajectories, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I think what we'd like to do, we've got a couple of admirals in play as well. We've got Forbes, who lets us re-roll, I think, if we get when we make a roll, he lets us re-roll a dice, or no, not even re-roll it, he turns it into a 6, is even better than a re-roll. So Forbes lets us choose a dice that we've rolled and turn it into a 6. That's great, and that can include weather dice and stuff if we want bad weather to turn up, but in this situation we probably don't. And we've also got Pound, and he lets us do the all pass action, which lets us carry out the time lapse with multiple trajectories all at once, and that's quite powerful because as the British we can have lots and lots of trajectories on the board. I'm just checking that that's what Pound does. Yes, he's the all pass, and we can use that twice. So what we could do here is, for example, we could move ourselves into position to intercept any task forces coming out of Narvik, and then we could do an all-pass action, which would allow us to put stations off the Norwegian coast to get intel markers and move our task forces, start moving our convoys, making progress in terms of completing with them. So I think that's what we're going to do. One thing I'm going to do is we can also conduct a reorganize action and again, this doesn't cost the initiative. So what we're going to do is move some heavy cruisers into a new task force like that, also at Scarpa Flow. And the reason for doing that is because we don't really need 4 heavy cruisers and a battle cruiser to sink a convoy. So what we want to do is just pop a trajectory out up the Norwegian coast off Trondheim here, like so. So that will do for that, and they are fast. So when we use our all pass action, they will become a station, and then similarly we'll pop this light cruiser here into here. So just, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're fast, so they'll become a station again. So we can run a trajectory up from the channel up here off Bergen into here. Get rid of this. And so now we've got 4 trajectories on the board, and we've still got our battle cruiser with 2 heavy cruisers and Forbes waiting in Scarpa Flow as our kind of reserve. So yeah, the thing we want to do now probably is use Pound. We'll use one of his abilities, we'll flip him over to show he's used that once, and we'll all pass. And that means that this convoy can pass for 2. This convoy can pass and there's 2 segments. But what we really want to happen is all happening up here. So this light cruiser is fast and can become a station here, and we'll lose those. And similarly, our 2 heavy cruisers that have been sent off to patrol for German convoys coming down the coast will end up here, and we'll lose those. And we've now got a nice secure sort of block in. So there's you know, there's no way of getting from Narvik down into Wilhelmshaven without picking up intel markers, and you can do it the painful way or the even more painful way if you want to come all the way round the British Isles and then try and get through the Channel, picking up intel markers from the French port here and from Portsmouth and from one of these. So there we go. We've now passed and the initiative goes to the Germans. We make a weather roll and we'll groove on from here to see what they do. The weather rolls are 4. We're staying in good weather. And let's do an on-camera German roll, see what they're going to do. So they get a 3. Now the German actions are divided up into early and late. The early table is used before a battle has occurred or a convoy has been destroyed or an airstrike action has been performed. So before we've had hostilities. Once we've had some sort of hostilities, battle, destroyed convoy or airstrike, we move on to this late table. But here we use this, and this says the number of successful British completion actions, and that's 0. We haven't completed with any convoys. So we've rolled a 3, and that says convoy. So the Germans select a German task force with a convoy in it. If none in play, create a new task force in Narvik, place a convoy in it, and it attempts to complete in Kiel. To do so, it performs a trajectory action in order to do the completion action, and it takes the most direct route. And these words in red, I don't know if I did this in any of my previous videos, but in this book, the solitaire book, these words in red have a specific meaning, and it's quite important because it also tells you what they don't do, if that makes sense. Perhaps it doesn't make sense, but I'll explain better once I show you some of the red ideas. So direct is this one here. What's interesting is that it doesn't say avoid intel triggers. So it didn't say the most direct route avoiding intel triggers. It doesn't care about intel triggers, because if it did, it would say avoiding intel triggers. But it says the most direct route. In other words, they're coming down neutral waters. They don't care about intel triggers, because they figure the British aren't going to attack them in and breach sort of Norwegian not neutrality. So anyway, I'll crack on with that, and we'll come back in a bit. Okay, so we end up in this position here with the two trajectories gone there, because the Germans pass after to try and complete. If they would try and complete if there were no intel markers, but there are intel markers, so they pass instead. Initiative changes hands. I best remember to make a weather die roll, and the weather stays fine. Okay, so we now have some options as the British player. We could try and complete with one of our convoys. So this one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Germans could stop that by seizing the initiative, but they need a 9+, and they've currently got no modifiers. We could also use our signals action to turn this German convoy into a station so that we can try and engage it. I think the sensible order to do this in is to try and complete with our convoy. We've got a good chance of success. The signals will happen automatically, so we can then turn that convoy into a station, and then there's a chance the Germans again seize the initiative. But we may well keep the initiative through the whole process and get to then try and engage that convoy, and it would still then be trying to get past another task force, even if we fail to find it. So let's go for this. We're going to complete with the task force into Portsmouth. I'm not going to mark it up. The Germans try and seize the initiative. They get a 6 and fail. So the first thing that we do is move the German tally up 1, and we've completed with a task force into Portsmouth. So that scores us some points and reduces our liabilities and things that the Germans could try and sneak past our blockades and sinks. So okay, just remove that task force from the display, pop him down there just for safekeeping. So that was good. That's a completion action done. Now we're going to use a signals action, so we'll take these intels off here. We'll take these trajectories off as well, and we will instead plonk the convoy in there with our heavy cruisers. And again, after a signals action, the non-initiative player has an opportunity to seize the initiative, the inactive player. So we'll give the Germans another roll to seize the initiative here, and they get a 3 + 1 is 4. So we're going to keep the initiative. We'll move the initiative marker up. Okay, interesting. So now we've got a situation where we could pass and try and get our own convoy a bit closer to Liverpool, or we could engage that convoy and see what happens. Let's engage the convoy then. And yeah, we're going to be engaging them in Norwegian waters, so the neutrality of the water isn't something that we can do a lot about. So an engage attempt with a let's have a think now. We haven't got a coordinating task force. We do have some air power out of Scarpa Flow here in good weather, which is 2 hexes away, so we could have a plus 1 on our die roll for air support. There's no German air support. We've got no contact markers, no evasive manoeuvres, no coordination, so just a +1 on our die roll. It's a 0 length trajectory. Let's just pop the dice tray up over here for a second. A 9 + 1 is 10. That's an extremely good result. So here on the engage table, that would result in British surprise. So we have successfully hunted down and just killed that convoy. I'm not going to play the battle out. We are simply going to remove that convoy marker. So that's a sunk German convoy. I'll just pop him down there. I'll make some notes on a little bit of paper, just to keep track of what's being sunk and what's not. So on the international incident table, having attacked, we have to roll on here. Let's roll a 6-sided dice and see what we get. And we get a 2, which says political backlash, Norway is irate, -2 VPs. Okay, I'm going to have to write this down and keep track of this. Let's make some notes, and then just before we move on, let's see who has the initiative next. After an engage action, I think players vie for initiative. So let's have a quick roll, and that is a German initiative. So the tally marker comes back to the British side. We'll make a weather roll to see if it changes, and it does. We get bad weather. So we've moved into bad weather. The Norwegians are irate, the Germans are irate, and from here on in our action rolls will be on the late table because we've now had a convoy destroyed, etc. So we're rolling on the bad weather section of the late table. Anyway, let me make some notes and come back. So in the bad weather, a German task force appeared in Narvik and steamed out for the Atlantic to try and hunt down British convoys, and has just done a naval search action for that British convoy, and that was the German dice roll, so they did a fairly good job. As it turns out, with a 16 segment length in total and no modifiers, that's still only a shadowing result, but the Germans can now reduce this down to 3 segments, and therefore will be able to search for it much more effectively. Sorry, I'm pointing the camera the wrong way. Much more effectively in future. They can time lapse, but as an unidentified fleet they can only remove 2 segments, but you can now see that their naval search would be using 8 segments rather than 16. And after a naval search, I can't remember, is it a Seas initiative, or I should be learning them, but they seem to slip through my brain. It is a Seas initiative attempt by the British, yeah. So we have to try and seize the initiative. That's a pretty good attempt at seizing the initiative. So it's back across to us as the British, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, well, I think the most obvious thing to do here is to extend the trajectory out into Liverpool like this, and then attempt a completion action. The only thing is we might just want to get our battle cruiser and heavy cruisers out somewhere up around that task force. Nah, let's keep it simple. Let's see what happens here. Let's just try and complete into Liverpool. So the Germans are trying to seize the initiative to stop the completion and roll a 7 and fail. Their tally marker goes up, and we just complete with this convoy straight into Liverpool. Easy as you like. And we retain the initiative, so we can just pop another convoy down, and that actually ends the game. The rules say the end of the scenario is when 2 convoys have completed, British and or German, and we also end as a result a German action table. Well, 2 convoys have completed, both British, and we're done. We are done. So a quick tally of scores here, and we have got each British convoy completed, that was 2, so that's 4 points. German ship sunk, none. German convoys destroyed, that's 3 points, so that's 7. And we got some very annoyed Norwegians, so 5, no British casualties, a total of 5 points on the debriefing table. On the 4 to 8, that is a success, and we are happy with that. We would have needed 9+ for a triumphant result, but as it is, so we would have had to prolong this by not completing with that fleet and sending out ships to try and hunt down that German task force, but didn't do that, and seemed to and have just played through this scenario in probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I had played it before. I'd given it a run through to see what I could do, and it was slightly longer, but still probably ran through it in 45 minutes or so. So there we go, a very quick, painless and action-free, actually, pretty much run through of Search and Destroy. Sorry about that. I'm going to move on to the next one, Raiders of the North Sea.